Hello BookTube, and hello AuthorTube. I wanted to give you a little belated NaNoWriMo update. I haven't made a NaNoWriMo update mostly for the whole of the month. Of course, I'm talking about National Novel Writing Month. November is National Novel Writing Month, when hundreds of thousands of people all over the world adopt the absolutely insane goal of writing 50,000 words of the first draft of a novel in the month of November, when lots of people have lots of other commitments, including even myself. You have to set aside time for 1,667 words a day, which means that you really should plot your story before you're in November. Now, I did that this year. Plotted my story to a fairly well. And my story is a short story about a young man in India who has a crappy tablet. He doesn't have an iPad. He can't afford an iPad. He works at a restaurant, and he doesn't want to ask his mother. She would probably do it, but he doesn't want to do it. He wants to be independent. So he saves up a little money and buys, this pattern might strike you as familiar, a very old, cheap tablet online. Because he has seen YouTube videos that tell him how to root it, how to strip the current operating system, the antiquated operating system off it, and imbue it with amazing second life, so that it's suddenly a much more advanced tablet than the one that he has. He's fairly certain. He doesn't want the bloatware that it comes with, and he's fairly certain that he can do the rooting and reformatting system. He's studied the steps well enough. So he does order the thing, and the story starts with it arriving on his doorstep and him eagerly, lovingly opening it and starting that procedure. And one of the things I wanted to do for this story, as a challenge to myself, was a very slow, very gradual process by which that young man realizes that something fundamental has changed about his tablet, and not just the rebooting. The tablet is a thing now, a person now instead of a thing. And if your tablet were suddenly like that and didn't want you to know it at first, how would it hide that? And if it were trying to hide that, what might be the little clue that would eventually start to tip you off that something is fundamentally wrong here? What clue would the thing in that tablet not be able to prevent you from seeing? Right? It can prevent you from learning anything about itself, because it can change what it shows you. But it would have to involve somebody else. And I thought that process, I want to learn how to write that slow, gradual process. And I did it, and it's been very interesting. It's been very challenging to learn how to do that. But I've learned something else as well. I did not want to tell the story of the rest of it. Of what happens once my young man learns that there is something in his iPad. I did not want to tell the rest of that story, because the rest of that story has gigantic, world-straddling ramifications. That's not the story that I wanted to tell. I didn't want to tell a story about an AI takeover, in other words. And I realized belatedly, when I was slowly, gradually shading in suspicions in the story, which is the thing I wanted to learn to do in this story, I realized gradually that slow shading in of my character learning that something serious has changed here is not a novel. It's not long enough for a novel. Making it into a novel length, even 50,000 words, involves putting that slow, gradual shading process of increasing suspicion on the rack and just stretching it until it screams in agony. I don't want to do that. And I am right now in the process of doing that, because I don't want to tell the other story. I wanted to leave that for the future. So it's a lesson to me, really. I'm curious to know what lessons you're learning from NaNoWriMo, but it's a lesson to me that I really should pay attention to the pacing of the whole work. It never occurred to me, because 1,667 words a day is so crushing when you've got lots of other stuff to do. It never occurred to me that NaNoWriMo might be too long a time to tell my story, but that turns out to be true. So I'm well on my track. I will certainly win NaNoWriMo. I will certainly finish this thing. But it will involve me. I'm not going to drag my heels anymore. I'm not going to bloat this thing. So I am going to be telling more of this story than I wanted to. The last few days of NaNoWriMo, in order to get me to 50,000 words, will be me telling parts of the story that I very intentionally told myself at the beginning of November I had no interest in telling. I'm going to have to tell them anyway, because I'll be at that point by then. There won't be anything else for me to do unless I just blatantly waste your time. And I wouldn't want to join the ranks of popular writers who blatantly waste your time by padding their books. Some of those writers are royalty, kings even. I don't want to be one of those writers, but nevertheless, I'm going to have to do a little extra work at the end of this month. Fascinating to me anyway. I always look to NaNoWriMo not only to entertain me with all of the chit-chat and all of the update videos, but also to teach me something, and this has taught me something. Make sure that you have enough story to tell. So that is my NaNoWriMo update for this month. I'll give you another one when the month ends, and I will wrap this up for now. I will see you then. Thank you, BookTube.